Can you tell us, you were born into a cult? Like, you were actually born into one. So from day one, I mean, that's just what you were born into. Can
Yeah.
you share with us what you were born into, where you were born, what cult this was, and just share with our listeners the very beginning of how this nightmare started for you?
Sure. So I also know many other SRA survivors at this point that I'm friends with, and some are born into it, and some can be brought into it in different ways. You know, the cult, I call the cult the basically that top of the pyramid that runs the whole world. And then that cult has different sub cults. And so in my case, it was the Vatican, the Jesuits.
Mhm.
It was from my Italian side of the family, from my mother's side. And it's often the case, and in my case, it is so that it's generational.
Mhm.
So that my mother was part of it, the people of the generation before her, and so on and so forth. And so, and this is why out there, I mean, there's many family lineages. Some of them are more like elite.
Mhm.
So anyone in the world that is in any position of fame, power, or wealth, that's like, the so-called bloodline families, like this segment of people all belong to the they're all Satanists, they're all psychopaths, and they're all pedophiles.
Mhm.
Pedophilia is part of
Yep.
Satanism, right?
Yep.
So they're all born into it too. And anyone who's in any kind of, high level global agency or military or political office, they would be born into these families and groomed for their future positions, right? So
Yes.
that's kind of the way that it works. Just
Yep.
to give you that little background. So yeah, I came from this Italian branch. This exists everywhere in the world, in all
Yep.
countries. But there's a pretty substantial Italian segment, and being the Vatican is one of the most evil places on earth.
Yep.
So unfortunately, I came into that reality, and so was basically, tortured and programmed and groomed from birth on as having been born into this family.
And growing up, if in being tortured, I can only imagine the bond, if there was much of one. I mean, if your mother was raised in this and born into this and this is generational, I can't imagine there being, much of a bond on a from the baby. There needs to be a bond with mother.
Right.
So can you share, what do they do to destroy that bond, to disconnect you from having a really safe, loving bond with mom and with anybody?
Yeah. Well, as you alluded, of course, my mother she was actually, or is, because she's still alive, very, very fragmented. So what you might call a DID or a multiple. So she was already not stable, not well. She
Mhm.
would go into either massive depression or violence or
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. But on top of it, they do this to all of us that are born into this. They have very specific rituals to break attachment. And they do it
Mm.
from birth on, and they do it in a variety of ways. And so, as one example, I have memory of being in a crib,
Mhm.
and I can see, like, sort of peering over, through the bars, and they had my uncle, who worked in conjunction with some other cult members in Rome. He had come, and he had my mother tied up and gagged, and lots of flashing lights and very loud
Mm.
sounds, and then took me and spun me from my ankle. There's a thing, people can look it up, it's called spinning.
Mhm.
um, and so basically did all this ritualized stuff. They also, a little later, did a ritual in a Catholic church where my mother was sitting in the pews, and he had a priest, and like they took a metal cross and heated it up and put it on my chest so that it burned
Mm.
into my flesh. And then they did some chanting and stuff and put me in a little coffin on the altar, and
Wow.
then put the lid on and left me overnight. And all these rituals are to say, I belong to Lucifer, and, this, all of this kind of stuff. And so it did work. It did break my mother even more
Mhm.
because, I mean, and my mother was abusive, I'm not going to lie. But on the other hand, she was also a victim.
Of
And
course.
so as a mother myself, like, thank God I didn't, I broke that chain, but I can't imagine watching, she had to watch her daughter
Yeah.
go through all these things. So, it's very disturbing. But
Yeah.
what I want to say is everything that I talk about that happened to me happens on a level to the whole collective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So they know psychology, and they know that attachment is the single most important thing a human being can have.
Yep.
And I remember I studied psychology, and I remember these, I mean, they do these horrible experiments, but with the baby monkeys, where they take the baby monkeys from
Yeah.
the mother, and they have the wire mesh mother figure with a bottle with
Yep.
milk, and the wire mesh mother with a terry cloth covering, and the baby monkeys will cling to the soft one and die from starvation because attachment is more important than food.
Yes.
So if you look out at how babies are born in our world, you go to a hospital, it's cold, it's actually it's a horrible place. Women are drugged. And
Yep.
then when the babies come out, you see all the pictures of the babies in their little bassinets behind the glass wall in the baby room. I mean, that itself is insane.
Yeah.
If you look at any mammal, as soon as the babies are born, like puppies or kittens or whatever, they're all on the mother's body. That's
Yep.
supposed to happen. And they encourage us to separate ourselves from our babies right from birth.
Yep.
Then add in that women have been tricked into thinking it's, that feminism, which, maybe has its good points, but it's this program that they ran so that now women go to work. So you give birth, and a few weeks later, you go back to work, and that's another breaking of attachment with your baby. The United States has actually taken a world position against breastfeeding.
Yep.
That's another breaking of attachment.
Yep.
The economy is destroyed so that both parents have to work.
Yep.
And then you put your kid in daycare as a baby. You're breaking attachment at every single level of society. Then in school, nowadays they teach kids, and on TV, they show parents as looking like idiots. So kids are groomed to think that their parents are stupid or like they don't need them. I mean, in every way, shape, or form, they want to break our attachment. And that is very, very deliberate because it creates a human that's more easily manipulated
Yep.
and mind controlled
Brainwashed.
and brainwashed, because that bond is very protective. The family unit is the single most protective thing out there. That's why they want to destroy the family. So
Absolutely.
I just want to point out, I always like to say what they did to me on some degree, on some level, they do to all of us.
I love that you're showing how it carries over into the collective. I think part of people awakening for real, I always tell people, I kind of punch them in the face with the truth. I am not here to bullshit. And I'm like, look, I'm not here to make things like, rainbows and butterflies. And you want rainbows and butterflies, then connect to the power that you have within, heal the evil of this world, and then you'll get to experience the heaven on earth that you have inside. Until then, stop avoiding what's really happening. So the if people wake up for real, they begin to understand that all of this is very calculated, and to
Yes.
question everything, and not to question everything from a place of ego, from a place of arrogance, from a place of I want to prove you wrong. It's just question everything to gain wisdom. The natural way that we, especially women, are meant, the ability that we have to connect to the universe, because we are the ones, if we choose to have a child, we're the ones that create life and give birth to
Yeah.
life. And so we have a connection to the universe that is very unique to us. Men don't have that. And that doesn't mean men are inferior. They just don't have it. That's what women have. And that being destroyed is destroyed first because our patriarchal global cult society teaches everyone, brainwashes everyone in the world to objectify women, abuse women, be misogynistic. So if you're treated like shit while you're pregnant, if you're abused, neglected, abandoned while you're pregnant, instead of nurtured while you're sacrificing your body, growing this life, that already begins the process of destroying that baby inside, setting that baby up to be programmed to how they want us to be programmed because they're abusing the mother and whatever. This is oneness consciousness. That baby, that clump of cells that could become a baby, is an extension of that mother's body. It is the mother's body. It is oneness. They're not separate. They are in oneness until that baby is birthed. And even after birth, they're supposed to still be in oneness, baby on mother's body. But our, cult, patriarchal, masculine society, and of course, I'm not talking about healthy masculine, I'm talking about the cult stuff, what really
Right.
runs this world. They have done everything to change how women intuitively know how to give birth, intuitively know what they're supposed to do for their babies. And like you said, they've taken every step. Oh, you need baby formula, which poisons and kills a lot of babies, first of all. But you don't need that. You need the mother. And for people who choose not to have children, great. But if you choose to have a child, that's your number one priority. But that's also how they enslave women, to make sure
Yeah.
that they can't manage on their own. So they're either a slave to the system that we live in, or they're a slave to being a mother with no help and support to be a mother.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I just wanted to throw in there, I remember when I was pregnant, people give you books, and there's all these books about let your baby cry it out, blah,
Oh,
blah, blah. That is exactly the opposite of
yes.
that, again, breaks attachment.
Yep.
If you respond to your baby's every need, that's how you create a strong, confident, balanced human being who then becomes independent at
Yes.
an age appropriate time.
At an age appropriate
So
time.
so everything is backwards, deliberately so.
Yes, absolutely. So they're breaking bonds, they're breaking attachments. You're experiencing extreme forms of neglect and abuse.
Yes.
Um, can you share more about what it was like to be raised as you got a little bit older and as you were gaining awareness and maturing a little bit and able to kind of figure out, wait, there's something wrong here. Do you remember a moment and how young you may have been when you started to realize this isn't right, something's not right here?
Yeah, actually very, very young, maybe 2.
Wow.
I was so my father, who was American, was in the foreign service. So I grew up in various countries, moving around, and my grandfathers were ambassadors, and my great grandfather was a 4-star general. They were like it was kind of a political
Mhm.
family, but my uncle had my mom programmed to bring us to Rome every school holiday, like summer and winter. And then when I was 14 and my parents divorced, we lived there full time.
Wow.
And so basically, he had access to me throughout the year. He would also come and visit.
Mhm.
And so around 2, or maybe earlier, but I remember it around 2, he started to bring me into his facility. So
Mhm.
basically, he ran this torture facility. They're kind of medical, military, and they have these underground bases everywhere in the world. There's several in the United States. They're everywhere. And so I was taken there, and I remember at age 2, you know, there's torture of people, there's torture of animals, there's
Mm.
really brutal, brutal stuff that gets done, experiments, all kinds of things. And so, having been taken there and put through all these things, even at that young age, I remember thinking, what the hell is this planet that I came to? And
Yeah.
I knew that I had come here, but it wasn't my sort of original place. And I was shocked by the level of darkness.
Yeah.
and brutality. And I couldn't even comprehend how, because they enjoy inflicting pain. They really enjoy it. And so at that very young and tender age, I thought, oh my God, like, what is this place? But I thought at that age that maybe I could change them, if I showed
Yeah.
them love, or, which no. But yeah, at that
Wow.
age,
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
Of course. So when you would show them love, I mean, of course, an innocent, beautiful, divine child, I mean, that's what you think. Well, I'm love. You just need love. I can see there's something wrong here. You just need love. What was the reaction? What would happen if you would show tenderness or love or affection? Do you remember?
Yeah, they consider that a weakness,
Mm,
and they tell you that, and they laugh at it, and they basically engage in more destruction and more torture to show you what a weakness that is. And yeah, so they see, they're psychopaths.
mhm.
So they don't have a connection to their heart.
Yep.
And in fact, they don't have a connection to that higher self or that divine that we connect to.
Yeah.
We have this constant flow of life force through us. But because of who they are, and I can talk about this at some point too, they actually invite demonic entities to come and take possession of their body.
Mhm.
And so they've severed that. So they cannot feel remorse, compassion. We have mirror neurons. Like,
Yep.
if you watch a movie on TV and it's sad, you cry, and it's on
Yeah.
the screen.
Yeah.
And in person, you see someone in distress, the human instinct is to rush to help.
Yeah.
They don't have that. And that's what I think makes it so hard to believe that this stuff that we're going to talk about actually happens.
Yeah.
But people need to understand, these are not really people like the way we are. They're a different species. They don't feel anything. In fact, they enjoy inflicting terror and horror and pain. So, that's just something I think people really need to understand. They're not the same of us. So that's why they can rape a newborn baby
Mhm.
and cut it to pieces and cook it and eat it.
Yeah.
We couldn't do that.
No, right. Right.
So we can't imagine that anybody else could, but I'm telling you, these people, they're not like us.
They're not like us. And I love that you're sharing that before we go into more of those examples, which I want to. I want people to hear this. Because I think it's important to have the awareness that this is real and this is what you've experienced and witnessed. But I want to point out briefly that disconnection from heart, disconnection from soul, from higher self is really key, that Max pointed out to everybody listening, because this is something that I teach all the time, that my organization connects people. We teach people how to energetically connect to the highest level of themselves and to expand and to, heal all the traumas and the programming inside of themselves on an energetic level. That's what we do. And we do that for a reason. And I'm hoping that some people can now see how important it is that people like myself, like Max, will teach this to you and why we're teaching it to you. Because that's what you can become when you are disconnected from your heart center, when you are disconnected from your higher self in here to have a human experience. That's what you can become. You can be turned into, so to speak. So I want to point that out, because the more we're trapped in our mind and disconnected from our heart, the more harm we're able to cause in our everyday lives. And some of you might think, well, I would never turn into somebody who, can, experience satanic ritualistic abuse and torture. Like, I'm not going to do that to anybody. I would never. But I want you to understand that there are all levels to this, all levels. And some of the levels are you just flip out and become verbally abusive to your partner for no reason. You project and take shit out on them.
Yep.
And when you're disconnected from your heart, that's what you do. You're overtaken by your wounding, your unhealed shit. You're overtaken by your programming in a moment. And you're like, oops, sorry. Can we get past that? No, you go in and heal that, because the more extreme forms of that are what Max is sharing with us today. And if you continue to say, well, that's so extreme, I don't have to think about that. You're part of the problem. Because when you still do it on your small level of flipping out, hating people online, attacking everybody, and doing what we love to do, that's part of you being a brainwashed puppet by the very people that we're talking about today. And that needs to be understood by those listening. So, can you continue to share some of the things if you're willing, Max?
Yeah, so basically there were different things. So when I was taken to the facility, I would be put through these sort of psychological experiments to
Mm.
see. They like to do this, like to study like how people will behave. And so there would be situations like the facility had a lot of rooms, and they were three of the walls would be glass so they could observe, and sometimes there'd be people with white coats like taking notes and stuff. And so once I was taken into this room and I could see into two separate rooms. It was like a glass here and here, and they had a panel, and they had my younger sister tied to a chair in one room, and in the other one a woman that they had brought in, and she was tied to a chair, and they both had strapped these little bombs in their mouth and tied them around their head.
Wow.
And I was told that I had to decide who was going to die. I had to push
Wow.
one button or the other. And of course, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to kill anyone. And then my uncle would say, well, if you don't choose, then I'm going to kill them both.
Wow.
So then that's the bind, right? And
Right.
so I always tried to save as many people as I could. So I mean, I couldn't choose my sister.
Yeah.
So, but that's how they also kind of put that in you. And, he would then tell me I was a murderer, because I had
Wow.
done this. And so, and every survivor I know has had to do things like this. So I had to push the button, and then the woman, I mean, her head just blew up, and, stuff went everywhere. And, it completely tore me to pieces to have to witness that. And then they took me out of the room and into the room that she was in and made me pose next to her body without a head for pictures, right? And
Unbelievable.
that's just so deeply, deeply disrespectful to her, you
Yeah.
know? And so it was so devastating to me. I mean, I'm sure you can understand, like, I don't even have words to describe the
Uh,
horror
yeah.
of that. And then having to sort of be told, well, you push the button.
Yep.
Um, and they would do, another time it was, he would kidnap gypsies because in Italy they're undocumented.
Mhm.
So, lining them up in this big room they had, and all the floors had drain holes. So,
Mm.
they could hose down the blood and the guts. And, again, lining up 20 people and giving me a gun and telling me, well, you either shoot one or I'm going to shoot all 20.
Wow.
Mm. These impossible, and in terms of, sometimes it would be like, I would be taken to these elite parties. And there was one time when I was there with my mom, and she was already gone. Like, you could tell there was no one there behind her eyes. And then at that point, the choice was, well, we either rape your mom or you know.
Wow.
And so, being the being that I was, it was easier for me to be hurt than to watch somebody else be hurt. That was way worse. So I would say, well, me then. And then
Wow.
again, well, you asked for it, you wanted
Yep.
it.
Yep.
And so it was horrible things like that. In the facility, it was also like he had this just horrific room where he had animals in different
Mm.
stalls, and like, there was a cat, and I'm sorry, this is horrific, but you said you wanted to know. So
Yeah.
they had this like tank, like a fish tank with water, and a cat like strapped into a metal contraption. And then they would put piranhas in the water and then lower
Oh,
the cat halfway in. And I was made to watch these kinds of things, cutting open pregnant dogs, horrible, horrible stuff that I was made to watch, because he figured out pretty quickly that if I see the suffering of others, that's what really, kind of gets to me. So there
And
were
so
things.
that's and so just to interject, so that's always the main key with the psychological
Yes,
testing and abuse, is to try to find out what's really gonna push your button the most, what's gonna affect you the most deeply, and it's such a psychological way, and then they just give you mostly that type of abuse. Is that
yes, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and and of course, I was put through electric shock, waterboarding, being. I was buried alive with dead bodies.
God,
They broke. They hammered me with a hammer and broke my bones. I mean, and of course, endless rape.
yeah,
So it's not that I wasn't physically and psychologically abused. I was, but for me, what haunts me the most is what I saw, them
yeah,
do to other people. I would also be taken to these elite parties. Some of them would be at these mansions that had grounds, so like woods and stuff, and they would bring me and other kids in cages. And sometimes they would dress us up in certain costumes, or strip us naked, and then we would have to run and hide. And it was a
mm,
hunting party. And so
wow,
they had a really great time looking for us. And it was terrifying, because you knew as soon as they found you, you were going to get raped or done to, and whatever they wanted.
mhm,
Um, and at one of these parties, they would be drinking and doing drugs and like whooping it up and having a great time. And at one point, I witnessed they had taken two babies, and they had this long, kind of old fashioned sword. And they just basically impaled the two babies alive on the sword. And then this person was swinging it around, and like they were laughing. I really want to emphasize that this is very enjoyable to them. And
yeah,
they always
wow,
have a feasting table. And at the end of the night, they always sacrifice at least one kid. And they like those two babies, they then cook them and they serve them. They
wow,
are cannibals, and they drink children's blood. So, this is a normal thing for them. I was trafficked, so given out to these different people for
mhm,
periods of time to do with what they wanted. And probably the most kind of horrific one for me was, there were these tunnels that connected that torture facility to these subterranean levels of the Vatican, where they have this big altar and they sacrifice children down there. And so I witnessed that. They took me there, and there would be like VIPs in attendance,
mm,
candles and chanting, and like kind of what you might see on TV as a satanic ritual, but with well-dressed people. And this was a ritual to Lucifer, and it was a way to summon in dark demonic entities into the room, and sometimes right into people. So they
mm,
would bring a baby or a toddler or a small child in, totally brutalize that child, and then they had a special knife, and they would cut the child from here down. And they had these chalices at the four corners of the altar, where the blood would drip in, and then they would pass them around and drink. Sometimes they would pluck the heart out, and someone would eat it. And this is what they do. It's, you think the Vatican, oh, it's Catholic, it's worshiping God. No,
mm,
no, no.
nope,
It's satanic. And if you have eyes to see and you start looking, you'll
yep,
see that symbology everywhere. I mean, I think they have a telescope somewhere that they call Lucifer, and it's all satanic. And I get a lot of people, I'm glad that you don't mind, like you said, slapping people across or punching them in the face, what you said.
yeah.
I've said this and people, freak out, but I'm going to say it anyway. The ritual of communion is a
Oh,
satanic ritual. Okay.
yes, please speak.
You're
I
eating
say
the
this all the time.
you're eating the flesh and drinking the blood of
Yes,
Jesus. Really? People there, it's Satanism in disguise. And
yes,
people think that they're worshiping God. They think they're doing the right thing, but these people are so sneaky that they insert their dark satanic rituals and make people unwittingly do them. And
Yes.
it does generate power for them. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. I saw it literally under the Vatican. So
Yep.
then when I was taken to church and I saw communion, I was like, oh, there it is, you know?
There it is. Thank you. I love you for that. I tell people this all the time, and they're like, "Oh," and then of course they call me a Satanist. I'm like, you don't even realize you've been tricked into being the Satan worshipers. Like you do it every Sunday at church because religions are the cults of the world.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. I always tell people everything is always right in front of your face. Are you willing to just open your eyes and see? Right? That the I'm going to talk about the crucifixion too in a moment. But that's exactly what you said. Quote unquote, drinking the blood of Christ, eating the flesh. I mean, where do we have these types of ceremonies or rituals? Satanic, devil worshiping, demonic worshiping rituals. And yet you're doing it in church. And people are too dumb and blind and brainwashed to see what they are actually participating in. And then you have a man tortured, dying, bloody, nailed to a cross, and you're praying to that. You're
Right.
just giving the energy to the destruction of holiness, to the torture and murder of holiness of what he stood for. He was a radical. He came here to tell you that religion is bullshit and that all
Yes.
this is going on and you should wake up to the truth. That's what he came here to tell people. No wonder he was tortured and murdered. And then everybody around him, they weren't awakened enough to realize that, oh, we worship Jesus. No, they're not. They are worshiping the satanic ritual of killing this man.
Yeah.
And people show up in church every Sunday you walk into a church with a cross with Jesus nailed to it and call yourself a holy person. We live in the upside down world.
Yeah, it's a mockery.
It's a
They're
mockery.
laughing. They're laughing when people go to church and think that yeah, why not have an image of Jesus when he was alive if that's who you're really worshiping? No, I
Exactly.
always say that too, and that gets me in a lot of hot water. But I'm sorry, think a little. No,
Yes.
this is crazy. And he was a light warrior, just like
Yes.
and see, it's not that Jesus is coming back. It's that a bunch of people that are light warriors have come back and are here
Yes.
right now speaking the truth, trying to wake people up, trying to help people heal and undo their trauma so they can step into who they're supposed to be. And
Absolutely.
he was against Satanism. He
Yes.
fought it like
Yes.
crazy. So I think he was a real person, and he was just someone like there's many people that have come here to do this. And I think right now we're in a really pivotal time in our history, and there's a lot of us that are here, and I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, but I'm saying, the whole thing that they did is, and he himself said, we're all, part of God, and it's
Yes.
inside of you. And
Yes.
he said, don't make some kind of church around me. So of course, they
They
go
made a
and do
church
that. So
around him.
well said. I think that's a really, really good point that you made.
Yes. Absolutely. They did everything that he said not to do. And he was a radical spiritual
Yep.
teacher who
Yep.
came to punch people in the face with the truth. I mean, that's what he was. And as a spiritual warrior himself, I mean, they did everything the opposite of what he came here to wake people up to. And we didn't have cameras and social media back then in order to play his recordings of what he actually said and what he actually taught. So they can go change that. They can change those things in history. They can rewrite. They can create a Bible and put whatever they want to put in it and say, just, in the name of Jesus. It's just a load of crap. It's a misogynistic piece of shit. So, I mean,
Well, it
read
actually
it.
it actually includes a lot of it's a lot of it's about Lucifer, because that
Yep.
Old Testament where the give me, sacrifice me your firstborn. I mean, hello people, that's not, no God is
Yep.
wrathful or
No.
punishing or demanding you sacrifice
Right.
anything. That's not the real divine. That's that's Lucifer. That's
Exactly.
Satan. Okay. So it's written in there. There's some truth in there, but
Of
of course it
course.
was written for an agenda. It has
Yep.
nothing to do with anything. And
Absolutely.
they love to do Jesus rituals. They put me through a lot of you know, being tied to a cross and a lot of that stuff they love to
Wow.
do. So, but it's a mockery. And
It's a
then think of
mockery.
this. When you do like communion, or when you do in Mecca, they have the black cube that worshipers circle. That's a satanic symbol too. And
Mm.
you're creating a vortex of energy, which they harvest and suck up. And when you do the sign of the cross, you're touching your pineal, you're touching your heart, and then you're binding it together, right? So all these rituals that people mindlessly do
Yep.
actually have power and are benefiting the dark. So it
Yep.
is important to know so you don't help them.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I love having such a candid conversation. I usually have to watch my mouth, which I don't anyway, but but then I'm banned and deleted and all the fun things that they do when you speak the truth. But speaking of the truth, one of the 20 universal ways of oneness, is most people know who listen to me, is the way of truth. And here's how they can get away with a lot of things and brainwash you. There's many things that they do, of course, to brainwash the collective. Of course they do. But you are always going to hear some degree of truth in a cult. Always.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
always going to hear truth that is being taught, the written word, spoken. You are always going to hear some truth because it makes it more believable than when the other things are woven in. And that is just something to realize, that if you don't come from the church, and you're a spiritual teacher, or you're somebody who's highly conscious, and you're trying to help wake up humanity, you're a light warrior here at this time. They want everyone to sound like, well, that's all woo woo, they're all crazy, they're all cult leaders, they're all whatever they are, because the real cult leaders have you so brainwashed and tricked that you can't even tell the difference, that you start to hear other people speak more truth, the whole truth. And it sounds so foreign because of the evil and the darkness and the lies that have been weaved in with some truth, that the actual truth sounds very foreign to people.
Yes.
And I think that's part of where people start to get nervous and scared. And I don't want to listen to this. And I don't think I can handle this. They're not connected to their power, but they also are kind of, wide eyed when it comes to hearing the whole truth, because they're used to that brainwashing, watered down versions of truth with all that evil stuff mixed in. But I mean, when you've been fed that from the time you were little, you don't know the difference.
Right. And there's several reasons. One of the reasons that they everything is out there in plain sight if you have eyes to see,
Yes.
right? Because per universal law, they have to tell us what they're doing and get our consent.
Yes.
And it's a way for them to avoid karma because, we chose it. They gave
Exactly.
us the option, and not saying no is considered implied consent. Okay.
Yes.
So this is something that they do. And if you look at, there's so many movies, The Bourne Identity, Alias, The Matrix, like the Divergent series, The Hunger Games. They're telling you in those movies what they're doing. It's
What they're
all
doing.
there. If
Yeah.
you start to go watch that stuff, that's not science, that's not fiction. That's reality. They're
Yep.
telling you. Then they're telling you in all kinds of other ways through religion. Nowadays, if you look at any kind of music video or artist or Hollywood, the Satanism is just, halftime
Blatant.
football show. It's blatant and it's out there. They're telling you when Charles Schwab says you will own nothing and you will be happy, they're telling you that they're going to eliminate all private property
Yep.
and food and feed you bugs. Like they're always telling you, before the I consider COVID a satanic ritual that they did on the population.
Yep.
So before they did that, they always have the simulation. Well, that's them telling you that they're about to do it. Okay.
Yep.
So this is something you do. And then they also do things like, for example, Q. So a lot of people got fooled by that. So they'll say a lot of truth through
Mm-hmm.
that's a psyop too, but there's always a twist. So like with Q, the twist is trust the plan. In other words, don't do anything. Let somebody
Yes.
come and save you and fix the problem. And
Yes.
I was arguing this with someone, and they were like, yeah, but why would they do that? Why would they put so much truth out there? I said, well, because they're putting that information out to a segment of the population that's already woken up,
Mhm.
They know this is already truth. And they said, well, what about the people that haven't woken up? They'll hear it. And I said, people that haven't woken up don't hear the truth.
No.
You know, they will just reject it. They will say it's crazy. It's a conspiracy theory. So
Yep.
they're safe either way. So they put it out enough, but with a twist. And same with the New Age. The New Age is a satanic program. And the twist there is like, oh, don't focus on evil. It's only love and light and unicorns. Well, that's convenient for evil if
Isn't
you
it?
don't do anything about it, right? So they're always putting out something, you know, that what's that the name of that psychopath that talks about transhumanism and AI. Anyway, his name escapes me now, but they're telling you everything out there. And again, if we don't say no, no, thank you, then we're actually consenting.
Yes.
Okay. And then they can go forward and do what they want, and they're okay with universal law. And then the karma's on us. And when they send people who, you know, people go into the militaries or the police because they want to do good. Okay. But then they're forced to do evil, they're
Yep.
forced to do horrible things.
Yep.
Well, and they say, well, I'm just following orders. Now, what they've gotten is they've gotten all of humanity to create the hell on earth reality that they want. They've mind controlled, manipulated, forced, bullied people into doing satanic things,
Yep.
wrong things. So they create, so the world is as the way they want it, but they've done it through us. Okay. And they
Yes.
need us to create because they don't have that creative life force energy.
Yep.
So they've manipulated us into creating the world that they want. But the good news is that means we actually have the power to create a heaven on earth should we
Yes.
choose to do that. Because
Yes.
it's us who have created this for them. And it's us who can say, fuck no, I'm not going to do your bidding anymore. And we have to say no.
No.
We just have to say no.
I just the Rage Against the Machine, "Fuck no, I won't do what you tell me," is now going through my head, and it's such a glorious song. um, I love this. I love you so much, and I just love you so much because I felt like a lone wolf out here for a long time with how I speak and what I offer people in my teachings, but to hear somebody else coming from this level of truth and awareness is just, you know, as dark as the topics are, it's such a breath of fresh air. I want to mention that one of the things I want to reiterate something that they give you a degree of truth and then they tell you things like oh, what are we going to do about it? Trust the plan. And I want to touch on this for a moment because for years and years and years I've been telling people to take the love and light only bullshit and shove it up their asses because it's ridiculous. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't connect to your light. We teach that the energetic process of how to do that and how to expand it and make you the light quotient of your physical body greater and greater all the time. I mean, I teach that stuff, but people miss it when they deny that any of this stuff is going on, when they deny their own individual darkness and they don't heal that while they're learning to expand their light, then you're not really expanding your light because the darkness is still there. Energy never dies. It can only be transformed. And to teach passivity, there is a different energetic frequency. That's not spiritual. That's pseudo spiritualism. That's brainwashing bullshit so that nobody will do anything. The passivity is a very different vibrational frequency than the way of patience. The way of surrender to what is not give up. It's if I become fluidity, if I become flow like the universe, I can rise out of this scenario. I can transform this scenario. That's the way of surrender. None of that is passive. None of it is passive. So that passivity where, oh, just go meditate on a mountain and spend your life there and just detach from what's going on. It drives me insane that people are ignorant enough and dumb enough to believe that garbage. It's just another form, another layer of brainwashing so that nobody will wake up and rise up and do what we need to do. And that doesn't mean go to war either. It doesn't mean that either. But I think that one of the things I really want to hear from you, because I'm sure people listening are dying to know, as you sit here with your magnificent self, talking to me and honoring me with your divine presence, you're here with me. You're not in that. How old were you when you got out, and how the hell did you get out? And I'm already feeling it's like the just say no, tell them to fuck off. But how did you do that? How did you get out?
Yeah, so I got out when I was between 17 and 18. And it was a moment where I just, you know, I just had enough. And, they were actually, it was some kind of Easter ritual, and they were having me carry a very heavy wooden cross, again, Jesus like,
Mhm.
in this outdoor, area around this kind of abandoned house and everything. And, I look up and I saw that he had hung my sister from her ankle on a tree, and I just lost it. And this power just came from inside me, and I just said, "That's it. I'm done. You're not doing this to me. You're not touching me. You're not touching my family." And see, here's this thing you have to understand. They train us, they groom us with certain powers. So this
Mhm.
is going to sound fantastic, but you can train children to do anything. And so you can train them to be psychic and to be psychic assassins. You can train them to manipulate elements,
Mhm.
which I was trained in. They can train you to be a super soldier. There's so many things. It's kind of, you kind of can see it like, remember China and the communist Soviet Union, when they would take children very young and train them
Yes.
to be super Olympic athletes.
Yep.
You can train a human being to do anything, and they dabble in the occult and in black
Mhm.
magic and in all this stuff. That's a big part of who they are. And so what happens is, many of us and other survivors I know, we left and we used the training and the power that they had put in us
Yeah.
against them. So at that point, I just became enraged, and it was a dusty road, and so the basically the air started to swirl. It was like a little mini tornado, and it started to lift them up off the ground. And I just said, "That's it. You will not fuck with me again. I'm done. And if you do, you know what I'm going to do to you." And it sounds fantastic. It sounds whatever, but yeah, I just got to a point where I was done. And I remember pre-incarnation. I was at some kind of galactic meeting, and we were talking about planet Earth. And the planet Earth is very significant in this universe.
Mhm.
It's so its takeover by dark forces was a problem for everywhere else. And so I volunteered to come here, as did other people. I'm sure
Yep.
you volunteered to come
Yep.
here. And to be here specifically now, because they use astrology, and they use the universal movement of things. So we have finished a dark age where
Yep.
they have more influence, and we've entered a golden age, a light age. And they
Yep.
knew that was happening, which is why they rushed to do all these things that they've been trying to do, lately. So I chose to come here, okay? And I chose to incarnate and be in some of the darkest places on earth. Now, people say, "Oh, you chose to come and get abused." No. It's
No.
more like I joined the military to serve, to fight for humanity.
Love it.
Okay, and yeah, there was a risk that I was going to get put through that stuff, and I was, but I knew that who I was as a soul was strong enough, and that they would never turn me. So they identify beings of light that come in, like yourself, like myself, and many others, and then they really go for and try
Yes.
to use, because that's an energy source.
Yep.
They try to convert you to the dark, to
Yep.
use you for dark things. So that didn't work. Here I am. I'm exposing you. Fuck you. You didn't destroy me. But was it horrific? Yes. But see, I chose to come, and I chose to, do whatever I'm going to do now. And whatever it is that my higher self tells me to do, I will do, because I'm here for all of us, because we're
Yes.
all really one, right?
We're
So,
one.
so yeah, I got to that point where I stepped into my power. I said no more, and I left. And That was pretty much it. I mean, there were a few little attempts to unbalance me later, but,
Mhm.
and I got to leave Italy and come to the US. Then I changed my name. My first and Max Lowen is a name that came to me in meditation, and
Oh,
it's not. I wanted to completely sever from that family,
yep.
and I did it. And so people say, well, now you're speaking out. Why don't they kill you? Well, I actually died many times as a child from the torture, but I would just come back into my body.
Mm.
I would get a choice. I would see the big picture.
Yep.
When you leave your body, you know all, you see all.
Yeah.
And I would be like, okay, I'm going to go back because I came here for a purpose.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would regret it later. I'd be like, why did I come back? But, that's
Yeah.
a different story. But yeah, so I'm gonna do whatever it is that I can do because I came here to be one of a group of light warriors
Yes.
that's working towards, and you speak of the truth. The truth is light. Okay.
Yes.
If you strike a match in a dark room, you see all the stuff in there.
Yeah.
If each one of us who learns the truth, heals ourselves, takes the darkness that we have out, it's like a light bulb that turns on the planet. And at some
Exactly.
point, there's enough light that these creatures can no longer exist.
Exactly.
Then the solution is to raise our consciousness, because they live in a survival bandwidth, which is why they keep us in survival and fear
Yep.
and despair and all that. Once we rise to who we really are, they literally can no longer even exist in that reality, right? So I'm sorry, I've been
100%.
talking for a while. I'll stop. But
No, you're lighting me up. This is exactly it. I love this because the more, so a lot of people will go to, I either can't heal anything. I'm only one person, or what, if I just am what can I do if I'm only one person? And if I just focus on the positive and that's all I do, then I'm doing something. It's like, no, heal what you have inside. That is step one. You can't do much for this planet and what's going on in this world if you don't start with yourself, right? So it's mastering the self to heal your own traumas, to elevate to the power that you can become in a lifetime because of who you now are, which is the truth of what we are. That's the truth of what we each are. We can become the truth of what we are in human form. And as we do that one by one and then join together in oneness as a collective, the more we do that, the light shines so brightly, the vibrational frequency gets so high just by being me and you and us together. They literally cannot survive and be in the presence of us.
yeah,
I want everyone to let that sink in. I say this until I'm blue in the face and I take a deep breath and then I keep saying it, that they literally cannot exist in the presence of the divinity that we actually are. We just have to do the work to become our divine selves. And if we focus on that, the light exposes all and it also energetically transforms all. They can't vibrate that low when a certain percentage of the population of this planet is vibrating so high. That
yeah,
is alchemy. Our light transforms then.
yeah,
That's how it works. And if it's really that simple, and it doesn't mean it's not a hell of a fucking journey, the warrior's journey to become as high as we need to become because of the level of darkness on the planet. But in the end, it's just that simple. We
yeah,
just need to become a beingness of oneness consciousness, and it will heal this planet. We just need enough of us to do it. And then, of course, the more of us that do it, it's easier for other people to do it because the light is raising and we're getting higher vibrational frequency. Because we're one, we help each other in that way.
yeah. That's very well said. I always say that healing is a revolutionary act, exactly
Oh,
for the reasons that you just described. And see,
beautiful.
think about it this way. Okay, so they chemtrail our skies.
Yep.
They have cell towers girding the planet that reduce our consciousness.
Yep.
They poison our food, our
Yep.
water, our soil. They put pills and vaccines in us to weaken us and sicken us. The whole
Yep.
medical system is designed to do that, right?
Yep.
I mean, the propaganda, the media, the miseducation system where they raise
Yes.
you from birth to believe in authority and all this other crap.
Yep.
Okay, look at how much investment this cult has made to dumb us down and keep us in a certain frequency and a low consciousness. Why? Because what you just said, because of who we truly are. And if
Yep.
we step into that, they know they're actually scared of us. They know
Yes.
that they're doing everything, they're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at us
Yep.
all the time in a desperate attempt to keep us, because we also now have this light age. It's like a wave. You
Yeah.
can surf the wave or you can get tumbled under it. That's your
Yeah.
choice, right? But they know it. And so think about that for a minute. Why would they go through so much trouble precisely because of what you said? So I agree 100%.
Yeah, that's magnificent. And it goes to show you. And also, let's think about this for everybody listening. They're doing all of that. And as hard as life is for so many people,
Yeah.
you are still here, and we still laugh, and we still smile, and we still share moments with our loved ones, and we still connect like this, like Max and I are doing right now. We are connecting. We are becoming beings of oneness. We are healing. We are elevating. We're still rising, even though they're doing all the things that they're doing. Right. So as much as so many people struggle because they're being constantly poisoned and it affects your health and you have allergies and you get sick and you have, yes, I acknowledge it. I honor that. Truly, the struggle is truly, it's real because they make it that way. But it doesn't mean we can't rise above and heal all of it because of what we are. Just realize what you are. Just realize what you are. And we put things in place to help you become the higher version of yourself for those who don't really know how. That's what our organizations are for. That's what the coaching is for. That's why we help you in those ways. Because anybody who's alive and listening to this and can resonate with it even just a little bit and hear and feel the truth in it just a little bit, you were here to become the warrior that we've become, that you already are, a lot of you. We just have to keep going. We have to reach a certain level of progress in what we came here to do, and once we do that, it's game over for them. It's game over.
And it's not easy. I mean, God, my healing process was sometimes like brutal. I
Of
wanted to jump
course.
off the planet.
Yeah.
But what's the bigger picture? And they've sold us this like comfort and you're apathetic, whatever. But we're not here. You got to zoom out. Why are we
Yes.
here? Who
Yes.
are we? This is a bigger battle. It's a spiritual battle
Yes.
on this planet, and it's been. But you know what? We've already won, and it's just playing out in time.
Yes.
I think it's at a tipping point that they're already like, oh shit.
I
The
agree.
ball's rolling downhill and they can't stop it. They cannot stop. It's not the great reset, it's the great awakening.
Yes.
And it's not our world that's ending, it's their world. We're taking
Yes.
our world back.
Yes.
So good luck, folks. It's over. But it's
Beautiful.
hard in the meantime.
Yes.
It's hard. Is my life necessarily easy? No. I go through struggles, like everybody else. I mean, I find it heartbreaking when they create wars, which they
Yeah.
create wars,
Yep.
when
Yep.
they, and then, God, Rachel, I used to say, I think the line that'll really get people angry and reactive is when they go after the children. And I'm sad to say I'm not
Oh,
seeing it.
I
But
know. Oh my
when I
God, I
was
know.
a child, there were two things they said. Their agenda for now was to
Mhm.
normalize Satanism and make it the world religion through the Vatican,
Mhm.
and then to normalize pedophilia.
Yep.
So anyone who's transgender, that's fine with me, but don't think for a minute that the state or the government cares or the globalists care about you. They're using this.
Yes.
They're piggybacking onto that community to put this agenda out to normalize pedophilia. That's the end goal,
Yep.
and they're teaching crazy, I call it sexual abuse, what they're teaching in school right now to kids.
Agreed.
And I'm sad to say that I'm not seeing I'm seeing some people, speak up and fight, but it's already happening, and we have to. And it's what you said in the very beginning. People say to me, well, oh God, don't tell me what they put you through. I can't hear it. And I said, I get it. I have compassion for that, but it would be the same thing as if you're walking down the sidewalk and you see a grown man raping a little girl and you go, oh, I can't deal
I
with that.
can't, that's too
You
much.
keep going.
Yep.
Who's going to protect our children
Yep.
against these satanic pedophiles if it's not us?
Yes.
So, you don't have to run out and do anything, but like open your eyes and know that what they did to me, they've done to so many children.
Yeah.
So many children get trafficked. It's not okay. It's not okay what they're still doing to children. They're still eating them and sacrificing them and raping them.
Yep.
And it's knowing this that's going to stop it. It's exposing this that's going to stop
Exactly.
it. And if you're a teacher and you're willing to keep your job to teach this filth that's indoctrinating children and grooming them to accept pedophiles when they then go after them,
Yep.
then you're part of the problem. Quit your
Exactly.
job, go start a different school,
Yep.
homeschool with parents. Like if you're in any government position or police or whatever, and you're covering this up, you're part of the problem.
Exactly.
You're a parent. What the hell are you taking your kid to a drag show for? What is this? It's not cool. It doesn't make you tolerant. This is a satanic agenda. So who's going to stop it? We are. So we have to take a stand and we have to stop this stuff and speak out about it. So sorry, I just went off on a bit of a rage tangent there, but
No, that's okay. That's okay. I am the wave presence. I love to hear what you have to share. It's beautiful. And our listeners need to hear what's really going on. Um, I know that I will get a lot of people sending me messages if I do not ask you something very important. And
okay.
we're running low on time. So I want to go back to this.
Okay.
Your incredible power to control the wind and control the elements. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Can you still do it? Do you practice things like that? Because I want people to understand, like, the laws of the universe, we are nothing but energy. There are powers that we all have. The darkness, use it for evil. It's that simple. And people of the light would use powers like that, which we all have the ability to do if we wake up enough and elevate enough. We would use it for the light. So I want people to wake up to that before I have you answer this, because I don't want you to answer and talk about it and then people, well, but she learned it when she was being and tortured. It's like, okay, let's be a little mature and listen to this with open heart and with the way of wisdom as the way of wisdom. Because you guys, part of the reason why we are able to be controlled and brainwashed so easily is because they create nothing but separation, and they have us all fighting each other and hating each other and blah, 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 right? And they then pass down the wisdom decade after decade, century after century. They don't lose the wisdom because they keep their, all of their rituals, all of their cults, all of their sectors, they keep them alive and well. It's everybody else that they have dispersed and separated so that we can't pass down the wisdom of these things and use it for good and use it for light. So I just want to make that very clear, that just because somebody has psychic abilities and powers and can do these really incredible things, that's your innate ability. Like, a lot of people have abilities that they can grow into, and you can use it for the light versus the lunatics and the psychopaths that use it for evil
Right.
and torture and all of that. So I want to make sure our listeners have that very clear. Please tell us about your ability to control the wind and the elements.
So I'm going to start by saying we all have this ability.
Yeah.
Okay. We've just been dumbed down out of it.
Yep.
Everything is energy. We're all interconnected. Plants, for example, they have a consciousness.
Yep.
If you're planting a garden and you put the seeds in your mouth and then plant them, those plants will grow to tailor the nutrition exactly to what your body needs. Okay. Which is why these big factory farms with machines growing food,
Yeah.
it's related to the people. The plants adapt, and it's an interdependent relationships. Many native peoples ingest psychoactive plants to connect or whatever. So many native peoples, why did they used to do rain dances?
Yeah.
Because you can connect with the elements and ask for what you need and
Yes.
bring the rain down. And
Yes.
so, yes, so I had this training and this ability, and I kind of didn't remember I had it, but it just kind of popped in and out. But now that I've remembered it as an adult, I've used it. So there was one night where it was really, really windy. There was a storm coming, and it was so windy that the trees around my house were like coming close and bending, and I was kind of scared. And then I just centered myself and calmed down, and I just talked to the wind. And I said, please, can you kind of tone it down a little? It's too violent. It's going to cause harm to people. Like, just, and I connected. I mean, you have to go in and you have
Yes.
to get into that
Yes.
that state, where you can communicate energetically. And the wind, it toned itself down. It died down to a very small whimper of the raging thing that it was. Now think of things like Dr. Emoto's work with water, or
Yes.
cymetics, right?
Yes. Yes.
So he showed that if you take water, a glass of water, and you either play classical music to it or dystonic music, or tape the word love or I hate you on the glass of
Yeah.
water, he would freeze the water, look at the crystals. The good words will create harmonious, beautiful crystals. The negative energy will create deformed crystals. We're made of water.
Yes.
We're hypnotizing ourselves with our thoughts and our words.
All day
Whenever,
long.
if you say, oh my God, I'm so stupid, that distorts, that changes your cells, and the water inside you gets into a different, basically, shape.
Yep.
So I'm just giving these examples to show, like, this is not woo-woo stuff.
Right.
Okay. This is daily stuff. It's been hidden from us, like you say, but you can change a lot of things by even the way you talk or think. So it's very important to monitor your thoughts. And the words are sound frequencies. They
Yes.
go out there and you're creating reality
Yes.
with your words, right?
Yes.
So this is not some woo-woo stuff. So yeah, that ability that I have with wind and with water in particular, anybody could develop that.
Mhm.
This is who we actually are.
Yes.
And again, they have TV shows to show you that. And when my daughter was little, she watched the Last Airbender, I think it was called. It was a
Yeah.
cartoon. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, there they are telling us, right?
Yes. 100%. I love that. I love that so much, that you can command your reality into existence. And in fact, we are doing it
We
all
are.
of the time.
Yeah. It's just,
All
what
of
are
the
we
time.
creating?
Exactly.
That's the
What are we
question.
creating?
Do you like what's out there? Because I don't. Let's create something different.
Yes. And the universal law, like, we came to a planet where the collective, we agree to be a part of a collective. So you have your individual, personal reality, that micro reality, but there is also a macro. Both exist because we're one. And so the more people that wake up and raise their level of consciousness, heal their traumas, and learn all of the things that some of what we've mentioned here in this episode today, you learn how to do that. It's a becoming. You have to become a more elevated being, and you have to be willing and devoted to that process. And the more that we do that, the more we change the macro and the whole planet, because we just command our realities into being what we want it to be. And our wanting now comes from a place of power, divinity, love, light. And the place which you want things from, if it comes from weakness and trauma and programs and scarcity and fear and anger, that's more of what you're creating, no matter what you want. You could want a paradise, but you're coming from those lower vibrational frequencies. You're creating more hell. If you come from a healed, whole place, what you quote unquote want is then commanding, the reality is being commanded into existence by you from a place of light and love and what everybody claims to want, but they're not willing to do the work to become it in order for that reality to actually be in existence. But we have that power. So thank you for sharing what you're able to do, and that beautiful divine magic that everybody can become, like you are. Is there anything else before we wrap things up that you would like to share to our listeners today?
I would just like to say that people get very scared and disempowered, and they say, oh my God, all these problems out there. What can I do? You know, how do I change the world? And you kind of said it earlier. First, change yourself, heal
Yes.
yourself, step into your power, then reconnect with others because they've divided and conquered us in every way
Yes.
possible. And then reconnect with your divinity and your higher self. And that's the winning formula. The way that we're going to change this world is to heal ourselves, to come together, and to rise in consciousness. And then it's just going to shift. So we've got this, is what I want to say. We absolutely got this. And that's why they're throwing everything at us to convince us that we don't. And,
Yes.
you know, when they put out scary headlines, people, that's their wet dream of what they want to do. Okay,
Yes.
it's true, they want to do that. But if we take that headline and get disempowered and scared and start telling other people, oh, they're going to do this, they're going to do this, we're assisting them in doing it. And that because they use our energy. So watch
Yes.
your energy. What are you putting it towards? You know, because we can absolutely change the world if and it's really just as simple as start with yourself. So
Yeah.
I think that bears repeating, and I love that you feel that way too and you said it, but that would be my message. Like, just get started, start working on yourself, because being
Beautiful.
spiritual isn't, you know, meditating and la 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 and everything's beautiful. Being spiritual is dealing with your trauma, is
Yes.
is going slogging through the mud and doing what you can to get yourself, you know, whole so that you can
Yes.
be part of the solution.
Beautiful wisdom right there. That is the way of wisdom. Where can people find you?
So my website is unbroken.global, and all my interviews and videos are there, but also on Rumble, BitChute, and Brighteon. I'm on Instagram. There's like now many Instagram fake accounts impersonating me.
Mm.
So I used to be on YouTube, but I was, you know, thrown out for misinformation.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
I'm just beginning a Substack, so I don't have that out yet, but I do love to write also. So that's where you can find me. And yeah, that's
Thank
pretty
you
much
so
it.
much. Beautiful. Um, you are just such a powerhouse and a magnificent soul and
Thank
such a beautiful being and a spiritual warrior and whatever else I could call you in the way of honoring. You are such a beautiful role model to others and what they can become. And I hope that people hear this and they've listened to every second. And by the way, those of you who listen to this podcast, you know that we put this podcast out on YouTube. Hurry up and share it out, everyone, because I don't have a lot of confidence that it's going to stay up for too long. Share, share, share. Please do your part. um, but this is such valuable information. Thank you for sharing this space with me. This planet is so lucky. Humanity is so lucky to have you
you.
fighting this spiritual war this time around. Um, so everybody listening, um, go find Max Lowen, go check out her website, follow her on social media, become the warrior that she role models for you that you can become. She's a leader of the way and how to do it. And thank you so much for listening, everybody. Stay tuned and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening.